Greetings viewers, welcome back to the channel. In today's video we have a brand new customer and a brand new Subaru vehicle to look at. This is a 2013 Outback 2.5 liter premium with right at 183,000 miles on the clock. Now this customer is sick and tired of the quality of service and the runaround they've been getting by the local Subaru dealerships. So they searched me out and here we are. Now, this customer has a list of complaints and issues they want looked at and addressed. We will be covering those in this video, but since this is the first time seeing this vehicle and I'm not familiar with it, we're gonna go ahead and do a complimentary front to back, bumper to bumper inspection just to check the current state of the vehicle. With that said, let's go ahead and get this thing up in the air and take a look at it, inspect it, and diagnose the issues. All right, guys, got the hood up on this Outback. Really quickly, we're gonna do a visual inspection under the hood. We're gonna jack the car up, get under the front suspension, get under the rear suspension, check the engine, transmission, all of that good stuff. But first off, let's go through the bullet points here and the concerns from the customer. So number one is a wheel bearing hub assembly. We've got a rear wheel bearing hub assembly noise. We're gonna drive this car soon and diagnose it, try to pinpoint which side, get that order from the Subaru dealership. We have a rattle issue from the heat shields on the exhaust manifold or the mid pipe, not exactly sure which, but that needs to be addressed. We've got an issue with the HVAC system where they're hearing a clicking noise in the dash, likely a blend or mode door actuator that's hanging up and moving. And the fourth issue is a hesitation drivability issue where the car acts like it wants to stall out, wants to spit, sputter, and has a concern with that. They said the Subaru dealership had already diagnosed it as needing a tune-up and replaced the spark plugs. And after a really quick look just before filming, it looks like one of the ignition coils might have been replaced because it does look a lot cleaner and newer than the rest of them. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into it, poking around. So off the bat, our brake fluid is kind of dark and dingy, probably needs a service there, replacing out the old brake fluid. We do have a Subaru battery, so they are servicing the car at the dealership and using Subaru genuine parts, even Subaru batteries. Already checked the cooling system. We are just a hair low for the coolant. Looked at our power steering fluid. It's nice and bright red and good. It's not dingy and dark. So the condition of the power steering fluid is good. So really quickly, we'll pop off the intake air snorkel so we can get a look inside of the air box and check how dirty our air filter is. Looks like it's fairly new. A little bit of dirt buildup, but no big particulates, no big dust bunnies or dirt daubers or anything crazy in there, no leaves or big trash. So pretty much normal there. So from there, let's take a look at our serpentine belt real quickly. Seems to be in pretty decent shape, although it does have some pretty deep grooves on it, but there's no cracking or delamination or anything like that. So seems to be fairly decent condition. We do see buildup on the timing chain cover. We see buildup around the engine, a little bit of seepage of oil, dust accumulation. Nothing really too concerning. Looking here at the coolant crossover pipe O-rings, that's become a point of leakage here recently on the first generation of the FB engine. This being a 2013 would be the first year model of this Outback having the FB series engine instead of the EJ series engine. Do see a concern here where the intake is not seated properly to the air box where the mass air sensor is. I don't think it's loose, but if it was loose and sucking air, that could be an issue with our stalling issue. I think it might be something with maybe a dirtle throttle plate. It could be a CVT concern, but they said there's no check engine light, no codes on. Checking here, that is tight. We do have missing plastic rivet there, which is common to be missing. As we've talked about here recently, we're going to check our PCV valve for them. Our PCV hose is very, very hard, so likely that might snap. Might go ahead and order that. When I take a look at that, it might not have been replaced. Suction hose for the power steering is quite hard. I think they might have mentioned a noise or something from the power steering If there is, it could be due to this old hard suction line here. But overall, nothing is really jumping out at me. I do think, if I remember right, we've got a new catalytic converter on this. They had a CAT issue, likely a 420 code, and I think that was replaced by the dealership. So looking around, nothing really concerning, nothing jumping out. You know, average stuff for a 183,000 mile engine. As I said before, this ignition coil I can't really show you. That ignition coil there looks a lot cleaner and a lot newer than the one beside it. I think you can maybe see here. So it looks like that ignition coil was replaced at some point. Now with this, there is quite a bit of buildup here on top of the driver's side cylinder head. Not sure if it's coolant, not sure if it's oil. I think it's oil, but it's all around this fuel injector here for cylinder 4 and all back in here. So we're going to have to poke around a little bit more and investigate that. Might be the cam carrier leaking, might be maybe some spilled oil from oil changes that flowed back. Hard to say, but pretty much everything we need to check under the hood we've got. So we'll go ahead and get it up on ramps, get it up on jack stands, check our front suspension, check the underside of the engine, and work our way back on this inspection. All right, guys, so here we are under the engine, and you know, the last couple of videos we've been talking about the F-Series engines and oil leaks and cam carrier leaks. So here's a prime example of why you shouldn't be so scared or freak out from my video. Again, this is a 2013, so a 10-year-old vehicle, almost 200,000 miles on it. We've got a little bit of seepage at the back of the upper oil pan. Some could be coming down from the rear main seal. Nothing dripping, nothing leaking. Sorry about the focus of the camera here. I'm really close to this engine. No leakage from the head gasket. We do have a little bit of leakage, a little bit of seepage here at the edge of the cam carrier and the cam cover. But, you know, for 200,000 miles and 10 years old, it's not bad. You know, there's going to be a little bit of seepage here and there on the engine, but overall it is very dry. Now we do have a little bit more dampness. Again, sorry about this focus. I don't know what's up with my camera right now. On the driver's side, we do see quite a bit more. We do see a little bit of an actual drip, some wetness from the leak on the cam carrier and cam cover here. Collecting on this coolant pipe and running back. So a little bit concerning there, but nothing that's, you know, a forest fire or a kitchen fire that you got to put out right away. Otherwise, everything is quite clean and quite dry underneath this engine. So no real concerns here. So let's jump in here with the wide angle really quickly, make it a little bit easier for you. A little bit of seepage over here, nothing to write home about. A little bit of seepage with some dust buildup back here, no drips, and you know, over here we've got a little bit of wetness. A little concern here, but again, nothing daunting that has to be, you know, fixed immediately. So 200,000 miles, 10 years, not bad. And while we're under here, we'll take a look at the CVT really quickly. Bone dry, no leakage from the CVT or the CVT oil pan here. Everything is nice and rust-free, of course, this being a Southern vehicle. No rust on our exhaust. We do need to figure out where that rattling's coming from. And we see a worm gear clamp on this shield. I've smacked them all by hand. Nothing is really rattling on me. I'll get a rubber mallet out and go around and beat on it, see if I can find the source, and we'll go from there. So guys, here's a shot through the wheel well. And you can see a little bit better how that cam carrier slash cam cover is seeping, leaking there, running down, hitting that coolant pipe and running back. But again, nothing too concerning as long as they're checking their oil every time they fill up the gas tank. Shouldn't have to worry about oil level getting too low. So we've gone through with the suspension and checked everything. Pry bar in there, ball joints are nice and tight, sway bar end links are tight, no tears, no issues, damage to the CV axle inner outer joint, and looked at the struts. Everything looks good here. Pulled back the dust boots on the struts, no leakage from the tops of the struts. Really, really clean 10-year-old 200,000 mile car here, guys. So as I just mentioned, checking the struts, pull the dust boot back up and look for any leakage, any hydraulic fluid leaking out of those struts. All good there, but these probably are the factory struts, never been replaced. So at almost 200,000 miles, they are well due for a replacement. I will make a note of that. Tires are in really good condition, basically new Michelin Defenders, T+H. This is my favorite tire to run on an Outback, and they're fairly new, 2021 date stamp, so about 2 years old. So no issues with our tires, nice matching set. Looking at our front brakes, can't really show you guys here with the camera, just doing an inspection through the spokes of the wheel here. But we got some meat on those brake pads. Not new, but you know, not time for replacement. Probably about 50% life left, just eyeballing it through the wheel here. So guys, other than that, very clean, no issues. We do look at the lower control arm bushings here, and all the 05 and newers tend to have this issue. We can see the, you know, the cracking, the tearing, typical for this design on the 2005 and newer. We'll make a note on that advise replacement on those $30 bushings there. So moving on to the rear, same matched, beautiful Michelin tires, same year, everything's good there. Looking at the rear brakes though, the rear brakes are quite a bit more worn. Again, I really can't show you this, guys, looking through the wheel, looking for the spokes, but those rear brake pads are getting kind of thin. So let's go ahead and get under here, take a look at the strut and the rest of the rear suspension components. So I'm sure I got some flickering coming through the video because of this flashlight. Sorry about that, guys. We do have some cracks in the rear differential bushings, not quite destroyed or nothing to worry about replacing right this moment. So far, quick visual inspection, everything looks nice and tight and tidy in the rear suspension. Nothing really jumping out at me, but I'll get the pry bar, check these joints, check the bushings, make sure there's no movement here. All dry, no rust, no leakage from the rear differential. Already checked the prop shaft, center support bearing. Just looked around, got a little bit of rust and crust here. That's about as much rust as you'll see on a Subaru in the South. And you know, that's pretty much it. I'm gonna go through, like I said, and check all this stuff thoroughly, and I'll report back if I find anything of concern back here in this rear suspension. All right, guys, so everything seems to be in order back here with the rear suspension. I took my stethoscope and listened to the rear wheel hub assemblies. I believe the passenger rear is the point of the noise. I have not driven the car yet, so I will drive it to help me diagnose further before I replace it, but nothing else under here looks suspect. Heat shield, this one's kind of flimsy and loose, might be the source of a rattle. I haven't driven it either to listen for the rattle, so might be that, but who knows. Only other thing I see is this little wind deflector for the tire is knocked loose, so we'll go ahead and fix that for the customer while I'm under here with a new little push pin. And just like so, all good. All right, guys, definitely pinpointed our noisy wheel bearing as the passenger side rear wheel bearing. The other three are nice and quiet. Not sure if I'll be able to let you listen into what I can hear through my stethoscope on the video. So guys, you might be able to hear that wheel bearing, that wheel hub assembly making noise back there in that rear corner. Just going on a quick test drive to see if we can diagnose the issue with the hesitation, stalling, or stumbling of the engine. So the issue seems to be similar to the TR690 torque converter clutch failure. Hard stop, engine kind of shimmies, kind of shudders, acts like it might stall. It's not as bad as I've seen on a lot of the 690s, but that was stopping with the car in drive. So we'll come up here, we'll pop it in neutral and stop again, and you'll notice there's no shimmy, no stutter whatsoever. So neutral, hard on the brakes, nothing. No issue, no stumble, no stammering, Tried it with the AC off to see if there's a compressor issue bogging the engine, but that made no bearing. It seems to be something in the transmission, which could be a torque converter clutch failure like the TR690s were notorious for from 2010 to 11 or 12 model year. But I have yet to see this issue in the TR580. And we stopped pretty easily there and we still felt it. So there's only one more suspicion I have, and that is that we could be dealing with a dirty throttle plate, dirty throttle body. So we'll take the intake off and we will check to see if there is an excessive amount of carbon buildup on the throttle body. That could be choking the car down, coming to a stop as well. Hopefully, for the customer's sake, it just needs a throttle body cleaning and an idle relearn, and it's not a Stevie T concern. So we'll get back to the house, check that out. But first, I've got to run to Subaru, to the dealership, and pick up a hub bearing assembly for this car. All right, guys, so fresh back from the Subaru dealership. Let's go ahead and get this hub assembly replaced. So these are always a fun one to torque down because they're non-vented rotors. And you got no way to hold it if you don't have a friend to sit in there and push the brake pedal down. So let's go ahead and set the parking brake and hope that holds enough. Parking brake's supposed to hold the weight of this vehicle, but we'll see if it'll hold 240 Newton meters. And guys, that is not a step to skip or run in with an impact or guess, because the torque on that nut there sets the preload for your hub assembly. Put it too tight and you're gonna burn up your new hub assembly. Put it too loose, it's gonna fall apart. And as always, staker in place, just as an added measure of security that this nut will not come loose. And we're done there. Throw the wheel back on, lugs to 120, and we'll jump under the hood, pull the intake, see if we got a bunch of carbon and crud built up on the throttle body, see if that's why this thing's wanting to bog down coming to a stop. And guys, a little word to the wise, if you haven't completely destroyed your studs and getting the hub assembly out, beating on it, take your hammer and knock your studs out. Always save these. You never know when you need more wheel studs. Most of the time they're pretty decent looking and you don't have to worry about reusing them. But you know, if they're extra crusty, probably not worth saving them. But might as well do a little bit of recycling. All right, guys, so Subaru dealership told the customer that the reason their car was choking out and stumbling, coming to a stop, was because of worn spark plugs. They replaced spark plugs and, of course, did not fix the issue. But that's what Subaru said. So let's see what this throttle body looks like. Yep, as I suspected, a big old chunk of black carbon all around that throttle valve. So let's go ahead and take that off, give it a thorough cleaning, and see if that alleviates our symptoms. Oh yeah, baby. Look at that. Yeah, A1 service there, guys. Let's replace their spark plugs instead of checking simple things like a disgusting throttle body. So go ahead and get that shined up and back on there, and we'll get back to it. Now that ought to do her. Now we'll grab the scan tool, do a clear memory, an idle relearn, and take her for a drive and see if that has fixed our stumbling and bogging down and no good acting up. We'll also make sure both of these pipes are fully seated before we tighten that clamp down. And we'll be extra nice and put a replacement clip over here for that one that's missing. And there we are. That ought to fix our problem. I'm gonna go ahead and top up the coolant and a couple other things off cam. All right, so I got the top done out, did a quick little scan. I got a couple of codes. Nothing really to worry about on that. Nothing to do with our complaint. So let's go into engine. I can hear that HVAC actuator going. All right, so now that we got that memory cleared, turn the key on. Let it sit for 10 seconds. You should hear the throttle move back and forth, twitching. And then we'll just go ahead and do an idle relearn, which I've covered many times and made a specific video up here in the top corner. Follow that. We're not going to go through it all here, but we'll do the idle relearn and then go for a test drive and see if we fix our issue. All right, so quick little drive around. And the problem is not 100% gone, but it is greatly reduced. Give you a little taste of it here. You can't see it on the needle, but you can just feel just the slightest little flutter, but it's nowhere near as bad as it was when I first got it. So I think the throttle body cleaning has done the trick. It might just need a little bit more driving to completely iron that out, but much better than it was. And nice and quiet in here driving down the road now with that new hub bearing assembly in the back. I'm still hearing that squeaking noise, which I believe is what they thought. Yeah, it didn't even do it at all there, which I think is what they thought was an exhaust heat shield rattle. I've yet to hear an exhaust heat shield rattle. I do hear like a little squeaking noise, and it sounds like it's coming from underneath the dash or in the dashboard. And there is the yep, I think we've got it knocked out. And there is the little bit of twitching noise, actuator noise I hear in the dash for the HVAC. But local Subaru dealership can't have that part to me till next week sometime, and the customer needs their car back by Monday. It is currently Thursday, so one more stop. Pretty aggressive, and barely felt anything at all. So I'm pretty sure our throttle body cleaning has alleviated that issue. So it looks like we're basically wrapped up here. Or at least we're wrapped up with this video. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. I will see you all in the next one.